butler looked directly into the Duke of Greymere's face and said, "I am sorry, sir. No gentleman named Cassian Marrow has ever lived in this house." For several seconds, Cassian did not understand the words. Rain dripped from the shoulders of his traveling coat onto the marble floor. Behind him, the great front doors of Greymere Court stood open to the evening storm. Ahead of him stretched the entrance hall he had known since childhood. The black and white marble tiles, the carved oak staircase, the brass clock above the west corridor, the portrait of his grandmother. Number. Cassian's eyes lifted. The portrait was gone. In its place hung a landscape he had never seen before. He looked back at the butler. "Mr. Hale." The man's face tightened. Cassian stepped closer. "You have been opening this door for my family since I was 9 years old." The butler swallowed. "I believe you are mistaken, sir." Cassian stared at him. A maid carrying fresh linen stopped halfway down the stairs. He recognized her too. Anna. The sheets slipped slightly in her arms. Her face went pale. Cassian almost smiled from relief. "Thank God. Tell him." She looked at Mr. Hale, then at Cassian. Her lips trembled. "I do not know you, sir." Something cold passed through him. Not fear, not yet. Anger. Cassian removed his gloves slowly. "This has gone far enough, sir. I have been away 5 years, not 50. Mr. Hale's eyes flicked toward the far corridor. Cassian noticed. Someone was listening. He walked past the butler. Mr. Hale moved to stop him. Cassian turned so sharply the older man froze. "Do not put your hands on me in my own house." The words echoed beneath the high ceiling. No servant moved. No one corrected him. That silence frightened him more than denial. Cassian climbed the stairs. He knew every turn. Third door on the right. His former bedchamber. He opened it and stopped. The room was wrong. The dark green wallpaper had been replaced by pale gold. His writing desk was gone. His books were gone. The hunting prints his brother had hated were gone. Even the heavy walnut bed inherited from his grandfather had vanished. The chamber looked as though Cassian Marrow had never slept there. A footman appeared behind him. "You cannot be here, sir." Cassian turned. He recognized the young man. Daniel Webb. The footman's eyes widened. "You broke your left wrist falling from the stable wall when you were 14. Daniel said nothing. "I carried you inside because you refused to cry in front of the grooms." Daniel's breathing changed. Cassian took one step toward him. "Look at me." Daniel did. For 1 second, recognition cracked through the fear. Then footsteps sounded behind him. Daniel's face closed again. "My lord, I have never met you." Cassian turned. A man was standing at the end of the corridor. Tall, fair-haired, perfectly dressed. 5 years had put silver at his temples. Nothing else had changed. Percival. Lord Percival Marrow approached without hurry. Cassian's cousin looked at him as one might look at a portrait discovered in an attic. "With all respect," Percival said, "you should not be using that name so freely." Cassian laughed once. It was not amusement. "You expected me dead." Percival stopped several feet away. No. I was informed you were dead." Cassian stepped closer. "Then be disappointed." Percival's expression did not move. "I would advise you to lower your voice. And I would advise you to explain why my servants are pretending not to know me. They are not your servants." Cassian went still. Percival continued. "And this is not your house." The corridor seemed to narrow around them. Cassian said quietly, "Choose your next words carefully." "I have been choosing them carefully for 5 years." That sentence landed badly. Cassian's eyes hardened. Percival gestured toward the staircase. "Come downstairs." "Why?" "Because if you continue shouting that you are the Duke of Greymere, someone will eventually send for the magistrate." Cassian stared at him. "And what exactly do you imagine the magistrate will do?" Percival's gaze became almost pitying. "Ask you to prove it. Within half an hour, Cassian stood in the library before documents claiming he was dead. Not merely dead. Buried. The certificate stated that Cassian Marrow had died of fever abroad 4 years and 8 months earlier. A second document claimed the body had been identified by a merchant captain. A third carried the seal of a foreign consular office. Cassian read every line twice. Then he placed the papers down. These are false. Percival poured himself a brandy. Convenient. Cassian looked at him. You think I am pretending to be myself? I think you resemble a dead man. I am the dead man. That is the difficulty. Cassian's hand closed around the edge of the desk. Bring the family Bible. Percival hesitated. Only briefly. Then rang for it. The Bible arrived 10 minutes later. Cassian opened immediately to the page of births. His father, his mother, his elder sister who had died in infancy. His younger brother, Alaric. Cassian's name was missing. He stared. There should have been an entry between his sister and Alaric. Cassian Gabriel Marrow, born 12 March. Nothing. The page had been altered. Not obviously. Expertly. He touched the paper. A narrow strip had been cut and replaced. His name had been removed from his own family history. For the first time that evening, Cassian felt something colder than anger. Someone had prepared for his return. Percival watched him closely. Do you understand now? Cassian closed the book. I understand that somebody has gone to extraordinary trouble, or that you know a great deal about the late Duke. Cassian moved before he thought. He crossed the distance between them and seized Percival by the front of his coat. Percival's glass fell and shattered. Servants rushed toward the doorway. Cassian's voice was low. My father called you Percy until the day he died because he knew you hated it. Percival's face changed. Just slightly. Cassian saw it. My mother once locked you in the west linen closet because you put a frog in her embroidery basket. Percival's breathing slowed. Enough. No. We are remembering. Cassian leaned closer. You broke my nose at 17. I lied and told father I fell from a horse because you were already one scandal away from being sent to your uncle in Scotland. Percival's face had gone pale. Cassian released him. So tell me again that you do not know who I am. Percival adjusted his coat. When he spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. Knowing who you resemble and knowing what can be proved are not the same thing. There it was. Not denial. Threat. Cassian finally understood. Percival knew. And whatever had happened at Greymere during those 5 years had been built on the assumption that Cassian would never return. The magistrate arrived before supper. Sir Edric Valmore was a broad, severe man with iron-gray hair and an expression that suggested he considered uncertainty a personal insult. Cassian knew him too, or had. Sir Edric offered no sign of recognition. By then, word had spread through the estate. Tenant farmers who had come to discuss rents remained in the lower hall. Tradesmen lingered outside. Servants filled the edges of the drawing room. Cassian stood in the center of people who had once bowed when he entered. Now they whispered. Imposter. Madman. Adventurer. Percival remained near the hearth. Sir Edric addressed Cassian. You claim to be Cassian Marrow, Duke of Greymere. I do not claim it. I am. Produce proof. Cassian removed his signet ring and placed it on the table. Sir Edric examined it. Could be copied. My handwriting can be compared. With what? Much of Greymere's correspondence from before your supposed departure has been reorganized. Cassian turned toward Percival. Convenient. Percival said nothing. Sir Edric continued. Do you possess official correspondence from your years abroad? Cassian's hand moved instinctively toward the inner pocket of his coat. There. Still sealed inside oilskin. The diplomatic packet. His strongest proof. Letters from men who knew exactly who he was. Names. Routes. Safe houses. Details of the people who had hidden him when captivity turned into escape. Several still had relatives across unstable borders. If the packet were opened publicly and entered into legal evidence, those names could travel far beyond Greymere. Sir Edric noticed his hesitation. "You have something." Cassian said nothing. "Present it." "I cannot." Murmurs filled the room. Percival lowered his eyes. Sir Edric's expression sharpened. "You are asking this household to accept an extraordinary claim while withholding evidence. The documents contain names I gave my word to protect. Then your word may cost you your claim." "So be it." That silenced the room. Sir Edric stared at him. Cassian continued. "I spent 5 years among men who had nothing to gain by keeping me alive. Some risked everything. If recovering my title requires me to expose them, then I will recover it another way." Percival finally spoke. "A very noble answer." Cassian turned. Percival's tone was smooth, and an extremely useful one for a fraud. Whispers rose again. Sir Edric lifted a hand. "Enough." He looked at Cassian. "Until your identity is established, you are forbidden from publicly styling yourself Duke of Greymere." Cassian's jaw tightened. Sir Edric pointed toward the signet ring. "This will remain in my custody." Cassian stared at the ring. His father had placed it in his palm on his 21st birthday. "Too heavy for a young man," his father had joked. "Grow into it." Cassian had carried it through storms, fever, imprisonment, and escape. Now a magistrate who once drank at his father's table lifted it from the desk as though it were evidence from a thief. Cassian said nothing. That silence cost him more than shouting would have. They escorted him to the front door. Not violently. That would have been easier. The servants simply stepped aside. Mr. Hale stood by the entrance. Cassian stopped before him. The old butler stared at the floor. Cassian said softly, "You taught me how to knot a cravat because my father had no patience." Mr. Hale's face tightened. "You told me never to wear green with brown." "Nothing." Cassian stepped closer. "Look at me." Mr. Hale did. His eyes were wet. For 1 second, Cassian saw the truth. Then the butler whispered, "I do not know you, sir." Cassian nodded slowly. Whatever held these people silent was stronger than affection, or perhaps stronger than courage. He walked out. No carriage was offered. No servant followed. Behind him, the doors of Greymere Court closed. For the first time in his life, Cassian Marrow stood outside his own home with no title, no proof, and nowhere to go. Bellwether was only 4 miles away. By the time Cassian reached it, the rain had stopped, and the roomers had arrived ahead of him. The first innkeeper recognized him immediately. "Sorry. Full." Cassian looked around the empty common room. Remarkable. The second inn wanted 3 nights' payment in advance. The third told him plainly, "We do not want trouble from Greymere." So the man who once owned half the valley ended the night renting a narrow room above a printer's workshop. The room contained 1 bed, 1 chair, 1 washstand, and a cast-iron stove that refused to cooperate. Cassian spent 20 minutes trying to light it, then 30. At 40 minutes, smoke filled half the room. A boy from downstairs opened the door. He stared at Cassian. Cassian stared back. The boy looked at the stove. "You closed the vent." Cassian looked at the stove. "What vent?" The boy sighed with the weariness of someone facing a disappointing adult. He opened a small iron plate. The smoke immediately began clearing. Cassian frowned. "That seems poorly designed." "It is a stove." The boy left. Cassian sat on the bed. 5 years surviving foreign prisons. 3 weeks crossing hostile territory. 2 months reaching England. Defeated by a stove. For the first time that day he laughed. It lasted only a moment. Then silence returned. He removed his coat. Something slid beneath the door. Cassian froze. A folded piece of paper lay on the floor. He crossed the room and picked it up. No seal. No signature. Just 1 sentence. "If you are truly Cassian Marrow, tell me what your father hid beneath the 7th stone of the North Chapel." Cassian read it twice. Then a third time, his pulse changed, because there was something beneath that stone. A small brass compass, broken at the hinge, hidden there when Cassian was 12 after he damaged it and lied to his father. Only 3 people had known: Cassian, his father, and the man who helped them lift the stone, Mr. Blythe, Greymere's old solicitor, a man who had been dead for 12 years. Cassian looked toward the closed door. Someone in Bellwether remembered him, and whoever had written that note knew something that should have died long before Cassian ever disappeared. Cassian did not sleep. By dawn, the note had been folded and unfolded so many times that the crease had nearly torn through the words. If you are truly Cassian Marrow, tell me what your father hid beneath the 7th stone of the North Chapel. He knew the answer. That was not what troubled him. The question was, who else did? Shortly after 8, he went downstairs. The printer's boy was feeding paper into a press. Cassian placed the note on the counter. Who delivered this? The boy glanced at it. Didn't see. You were downstairs all evening. I was working. Did anyone come inside? Half the town comes inside. Cassian stared. The boy shrugged. You are not very good at asking questions. And you are not very good at answering them. That makes us even. Cassian left before the child could win another exchange. The North Chapel stood on the edge of Greymere land. He reached it shortly before 9. Someone was already waiting. A woman stood beside the chapel gate, holding a leather satchel. She appeared perhaps 27. Dark hair pinned plainly beneath a bonnet. Gray-blue eyes. No expensive jewelry. No effort to impress. She studied Cassian with the expression of a person examining an account she expected not to balance. You came. Cassian stopped several feet away. You wrote the note. Yes. Who are you? Rosamund Blythe. The name struck him immediately. Blythe. My father was Ambrose Blythe, Greymere's former solicitor, the dead man who had helped hide the compass. Cassian looked at her differently. Rosamund noticed. Do not become excited. I have not decided who you are. Cassian almost laughed. Everyone in this county seems deeply committed to disappointing me. I prefer caution. You summoned me with a question only 3 people should have known. I summoned you because my father left instructions. Cassian's amusement vanished. What instructions? Rosamund opened her satchel and removed a small envelope. On the front, in faded ink, were 4 words. For the man who returns. Cassian stared. When did he write that? 11 years ago. Before I disappeared. Yes. Why? I was hoping you could tell me. She looked toward the chapel. Answer the question first. Cassian stepped past her. Under the 7th stone is a brass compass with a broken hinge. Rosamund's expression changed, only slightly. Who broke it? I did. How? I dropped it from the chapel roof while trying to prove I could climb higher than my brother. Why hide it? Because it belonged to my father. And who helped you? Your father. Rosamund said nothing. Cassian looked at her. Satisfied? No. He exhaled. You are extraordinarily irritating. I have been told. She unlocked the chapel door. The 7th stone lay beside the old northern wall. Cassian knelt. His fingers found the shallow crack almost immediately. The memory came back with unsettling clarity. His father whispering that dishonesty was always heavier than the object one tried to hide. Mr. Blythe suppressing laughter while helping a terrified 12-year-old replace the stone. Cassian worked the edge loose. Rosamund crouched beside him. Together they lifted it. The brass compass remained underneath, green with age, hinge still broken. Cassian picked it up. For several seconds he could not speak. Rosamund watched him carefully. A liar could memorize facts. A liar could copy handwriting. But the way Cassian held that ruined compass was harder to imitate. Then Rosamund saw something else beneath the stone. A folded oilskin packet. Cassian frowned. That was not there. You are certain? I hit a compass, not correspondence. Rosamond pulled the packet free. Inside was a single sheet in her father's handwriting. She read aloud, "If Graymere ever begins denying its own history, do not trust the family archive." Neither moved. Rosamond continued, "Truth, kept in only one house, can be murdered in one night. Look where ordinary men keep ordinary records." Cassian stared at her. "Your father expected this." Rosamond's face had lost its certainty. "I do not know what he expected. He knew someone might alter Graymere's records." "Apparently. Why did he never tell me? He died years before you vanished." Cassian looked again at the letter. "Then he feared something before my disappearance." Rosamond folded it carefully. Cassian asked, "What else did he leave?" Her hesitation told him there was more. "Miss Blythe, there are notebooks." "How many?" "7. And you thought to mention this only now?" "I thought you might be an imposter." "You still do?" Rosamond looked at the compass in his hand. "Less than yesterday." It was the closest thing to trust she was willing to offer. For now, Cassian accepted it. Rosamond lived above a lending library on Mill Street. Her father's notebooks filled an entire shelf in a locked cabinet. They did not contain dramatic confessions. That would have been easier. Instead, Ambrose Blythe had recorded scraps. Dates, names, payments, odd observations. A tailor who had been asked to destroy old measurement books. A parish clerk instructed to copy certain baptism records. A physician paid to amend a death entry. A stable account removed from Graymere and never returned. Cassian read until his eyes hurt. At midday, Rosamond put a plate beside him. He barely noticed. "Eat. I am reading. You can do both. I cannot. That explains aristocratic government." Cassian looked up. "Was your father this unpleasant?" "Worse." He took the bread. Several pages later he stopped. "Here." Rosamond leaned over his shoulder. A note, dated 6 years earlier. "Mr. Trench, advised to retain all measurement books privately. House requested destruction." "Trench," Cassian said. "My tailor." "Your tailor?" "My father's too." Rosamond closed the notebook. "Then we begin there." Mr. Trench had retired from tailoring, but still lived above his former shop. He opened the door, saw Cassian, and nearly closed it again. Rosamond blocked it with her boot. "Mr. Trench." "I do not want trouble." Cassian said, "Neither do I." "That is what trouble always says." Rosamond gave Cassian a look. "Apparently the county has rehearsed insults for your return." Inside, Trench finally produced an old book. Measurements. Dozens of names. Cassian found his own immediately. C. Merrow. Ages 16 through 27. Shoulders. Chest. Sleeve. Inside leg. Dates. Notes about uniforms and formal coats. Rosamond tapped the page. If Cassian Merrow never lived at Graymere, why was Graymere paying to dress him for 11 years? Trench whispered. "I was told to burn that." "By whom?" Cassian asked. The old man looked away. "Mr. Varick, Graymere's current estate steward," a name Cassian had barely considered. "What did he offer you?" "Nothing." "Then why obey?" Trench's voice became bitter. "He reminded me my son rents Graymere land." Cassian went still. There it was. Not loyalty, not confusion, leverage. The servants were not merely lying. Someone had made truth dangerous. Over the next 10 days, Cassian and Rosamond built a life from fragments. A physician's ledger recorded Cassian breaking 2 ribs in a hunting accident. A schoolmaster preserved letters complaining that young Lord Cassian argued too much. A saddler had old accounts for 3 horses purchased in Cassian's name. The parish charity register contained annual donations signed by him. A bookseller in Bellwether remembered Cassian ordering a volume on Roman engineering and never collecting it. "That last one proves nothing," Cassian said. "It proves poor organization. I was leaving for London. You owed 6 shillings. I was a duke. That is not a defense. It generally was. Rosamund stared. Cassian laughed. It came easier around her now. And slowly something else happened. Bellwether stopped looking at him only as the man claiming to be a duke. The mill sluice jammed after heavy rain. Cassian spent an afternoon helping workers redirect the flow. A widow brought him a lease she could not understand. He read it and found a clause that would have allowed her landlord to seize her workshop after one missed payment. 2 merchants dragged him into an argument over storage rights. He resolved it in 15 minutes. By the end of the week, people began knocking on the printer's door asking, "Is Mr. Marrow upstairs?" "Not your grace." "Not Duke." "Mr. Marrow." Oddly, Cassian did not hate it. For the first time, people listened to him without bowing first. It was uncomfortable. It was also clarifying. There was one thing in Bellwether he never understood. The clock. It was 11 minutes slow. Always. Cassian discovered this after arriving late to meet Rosamund 3 mornings in a row. "The clock is wrong," he insisted. Rosamund continued walking. Bellwether disagrees. With time. With London. Time is not a London invention. That sounds exactly like something London would say. Cassian stopped arguing after the 5th day. Not because she was right, because he had begun enjoying losing. Meanwhile, Greymere Court was becoming increasingly quiet. Mr. Hale stopped eating supper with the senior servants. Anna cried twice in the linen room. Daniel Webb asked whether the continuance allowances were still guaranteed. That was when Hale finally understood how deep it went. The payments. Every servant who had remained after Cassian's disappearance received them. Some needed the money. Some feared losing pensions. Others had children in cottages owned by Greymere. For years they had told themselves the lie harmed no one because Cassian was dead. Now he was alive. And every time Hale remembered the look on Cassian's face at the door, the money felt heavier. One evening Anna whispered, "He remembered my sister's name." Hale closed his eyes. Daniel said, "We had no choice." Hale looked at him. "There is always a choice." His voice broke slightly. "We simply disliked the price of the other one." From the doorway, unseen by them, Mr. Varick listened, then quietly walked away. The breakthrough came from the parish register. Rosamund laid 2 pages side by side. Cassian frowned. "They look identical. The parchment is, and the ink is not." She pointed. "This entry says Cassian Marrow died in infancy." Cassian stared at his own supposed childhood death. Rosamund continued. "The parchment is decades old, but this ink is recent." "How recent?" 5 years, perhaps 6. Cassian looked at her. "Someone inserted a death into an old book." "Yes. To make it appear I had never inherited." "Yes." He laughed once in disbelief. "They did not merely kill me abroad." "No." Rosamund looked at him. "They killed you twice." That sentence stayed with him. Then came the evidence neither expected. A payment register from a private bank. Annual transfers. Mr. Hale, Anna, Daniel, 3 retired servants, 2 former clerks. Every payment carried the same description. Continuance allowance. Rosamund looked at Cassian. "There is your script." "What?" "They are not independently denying you." She placed the register between them. "They are being maintained." Cassian remembered the wording. "No gentleman named Cassian Marrow has ever lived in this house." "I have never met you, sir." "His Grace never resided here." Almost identical. Not testimony. Instruction. Someone had taught an entire household how to forget him. That evening Rosamund returned home to find the lock on her father's cabinet broken. Nothing obvious was missing, except one notebook. Number 6. The one covering Cassian's final year at Greymere. Rosamund stood staring at the empty space. Cassian examined the window, forced from outside. "Someone knows what we are doing." They knew before. Now they are frightened. Rosamond suddenly sat down. Cassian looked at her. What? She was holding a loose sheet that had fallen behind the cabinet. Her face had gone white. Rosamond? She handed it to him. It was a copy of a death declaration. The document formally supported the claim that Cassian Marrow had died abroad. At the bottom stood a witness signature. Ambrose Blythe. Rosamond whispered, "My father signed it." Cassian read it again. She stood abruptly. "All this time I thought he was preserving truth. He may have been. He signed your death. We do not know why. He helped erase you. We do not know that either." Rosamond laughed bitterly. "Now you want caution." "Yes." She stared at him. Cassian placed the document on the desk. "You were the one who refused to believe me without evidence." Her eyes filled, though she refused to let the tears fall. "So do not condemn your father without it." For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Rosamond nodded. Barely. It was the moment Cassian realized he trusted her. Not because she believed him, because she had taught him how dangerous belief could be without proof. They searched the rest of the cabinet until nearly midnight. Behind the lowest shelf, Rosamond found a hidden latch. A narrow compartment opened. Inside was a locked wooden box. Her father's initials were carved into the lid. The key was taped beneath it. Rosamond opened the box. Inside were copied letters. Dozens. Cassian took the first. Nothing. Second. Nothing. Then the fourth. He stopped breathing. It had been sent 4 years earlier from Lisbon to Greymere Court. The first sentence read, "I write to confirm that Cassian Marrow survived the incident previously reported and remains alive." Cassian looked at Rosamond. Percival knew. The letter bore a receipt signature. P. Marrow. But beneath it was another. An acknowledgement by the county authority. Rosamond leaned closer. Her face changed. Cassian read the name aloud. Sir Edric Valmore, the same magistrate who had stood before an entire room and demanded Cassian prove he was alive. The same man who had confiscated his signet. The same man who had treated him like a stranger. Cassian slowly lowered the paper. Percival's betrayal he could understand. Greed had simple mathematics. But Sir Edric, a magistrate, a family friend, a man who had known Cassian since boyhood, Rosamond whispered, "He did not merely believe you were an imposter." Cassian looked at the signature again. "No." His voice became very quiet. "He knew exactly who I was." And suddenly the question was no longer whether Cassian Marrow could prove he had once lived at Greymere. It was why two powerful men had needed an entire county to pretend that he had not. Cassian returned to Greymere Court 12 days later. This time, he did not come alone. No rain fell. No thunder announced him. There was only the sound of carriage wheels, boots on gravel, and voices gathering beyond the front gates. Percival had chosen that afternoon carefully. Half the neighboring gentry had been invited to Greymere for the signing of several land transfers. 2 mills, 4 farms, a parcel of woodland along the northern river. If the sales went through, Percival would gain enough ready money to secure his control of the estate permanently. At least, that had been the plan. Then Mr. Hale opened the front doors and saw Cassian standing at the bottom of the steps. For one terrible second, the old butler looked exactly as he had 5 weeks earlier. Afraid. Then his gaze moved beyond Cassian. Rosamond stood beside him, carrying a leather document case. Behind them waited Mr. Trench, the tailor. Dr. Sayer, the retired physician. The parish clerk. 3 former Greymere tenants. 2 old stablemen. The bookseller from Bellwether. And nearly 20 townspeople. Cassian was not returning with soldiers. He was returning with witnesses. Mr. Hale's lips parted. Cassian looked at him calmly. "No one will ask you to lie today." The butler lowered his eyes, then stepped aside. Cassian crossed the threshold. The first time he had returned, the house had treated him like an intruder. This time, people began following him inside. The great drawing room fell silent. Percival stood near the long table where sale documents had already been prepared. Sir Edric Valmore was beside him. The magistrate's face changed the instant he saw Cassian. Only for a moment. Then discipline returned. Percival smiled. "You are becoming persistent." Cassian looked around the room. Several of the same servants from his first humiliation stood against the walls. Anna, Daniel, Mr. Hale. Others he remembered from childhood. Not one looked at him. Cassian said, "I thought we might finish the conversation you began when I arrived." Percival's smile tightened. "There is no conversation to finish." "There is." Cassian gestured toward Rosamond. "And this time, I brought the parts of my life you forgot to erase." A murmur moved through the room. Sir Edric stepped forward. "This gathering concerns estate business." "So did my disappearance." "That is an accusation." "No." Cassian looked directly at him. "It is a conclusion." Rosamond placed the leather case upon the table. Percival's composure shifted. "Barely?" But Cassian noticed. So did she. Rosamond opened the case. First came Mr. Trench's measurement book, then Dr. Sayer's medical ledger, then the parish charity register. The saddler's accounts, school records, stable receipts, bookseller orders. Cassian's name appeared over and over. Different hands, different years, different places. No single archive, no single clerk, no single person who could have manufactured them all. Rosamond spoke clearly. Greymere's official records were altered. She lifted the parish volume. "This parchment is 30 years old. The ink claiming Cassian Marrow died in infancy is less than 6. A ripple of shock passed through the room. Percival said, "That proves clerical error." Rosamond did not even look at him. She produced the bank record. These payments went to Greymere servants beginning shortly after the Duke was declared dead. Cassian watched the servants. Several went pale. Each payment is marked continuance allowance. Sir Edric's jaw tightened. Rosamond continued. The same servants later used nearly identical language when denying that Cassian Marrow ever resided here. Now everyone was looking at the walls, at the servants, at one another. Percival finally lost patience. "This is absurd. You have gathered frightened people and old scraps of paper around a man desperate to inherit an estate." Cassian looked at him. "Inherit?" Percival stopped. Cassian smiled without warmth. "I thought you said I had no connection to Greymere." Percival said nothing. It was a small mistake, but everyone heard it. Then Cassian placed one final letter on the table. The Lisbon letter. Sir Edric went still. Cassian did not look at Percival. He looked only at the magistrate. "This arrived 4 years ago." Sir Edric stared at the paper. Cassian read aloud. "Cassian Marrow survived the incident previously reported and remains alive." Silence. He turned the page. "Received by Percival Marrow." Then he touched the second signature. "And acknowledged by Sir Edric Valmore." Every face turned. Sir Edric's composure finally cracked. Percival said sharply, "You cannot authenticate that." Rosamond answered, "My father kept the original copying impression." She produced a thin waxed sheet. The acknowledgement matches Sir Edric's official seal. Sir Edric closed his eyes. Percival stared at him. "Say something." The magistrate did not. Edric. Still nothing. Then Cassian understood. Percival was afraid. Not because the evidence existed, because he was no longer certain Sir Edric would continue carrying the lie. Cassian stepped closer. "Why?" Sir Edric opened his eyes. For the first time since Cassian's return, he looked old. "I thought you were dead." "For less than a year." "Yes." "And after this letter?" Sir Edric swallowed. "I knew you were alive." Several people gasped. Cassian's voice remained controlled. "Then why did you stand in this room and ask me to prove who I was?" Sir Edric looked toward the windows. "Because by then too much had changed." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I have." Percival snapped. Do not be a coward now. Sir Edric turned on him. Coward? His voice rose. You told me it would be temporary. Percival's face hardened. Sir Edric looked back at Cassian. After you disappeared, the estate accounts were far worse than anyone knew. Creditors were circling. Tenant contracts were unsettled. Percival argued that if your survival became public before Greymere was stabilized, claims against the estate would multiply. Cassian stared at him. So you erased me to save my house. At first, we altered nothing except succession papers. Rosamond asked quietly. And then? Sir Edric looked at Percival. Then he kept going. Percival's face changed. Enough. He replaced parish records. Edric. He pressured servants. Enough. He had your old correspondence removed. He paid clerks. He threatened pensioners. Percival slammed his hand on the table. I preserved Greymere. Cassian looked at him. No. Percival turned. Cassian's expression was almost calm. You preserved your control of it. Percival laughed bitterly. You disappeared. I was captured. You vanished for 5 years. Do you know what that did here? Yes. No, you do not. For the first time, there was something genuine in Percival's anger. Men wanted wages, roofs leaked, banks wanted interest, farmers wanted patience. Everyone demanded decisions from a family that no longer had a duke. Cassian said nothing. Percival stepped closer. I made those decisions. You also decided I was easier to manage as a dead man. You were not here. I came back and destroyed everything. No. Cassian's voice hardened. I came back and discovered what you had become while waiting. Percival turned toward the servants. Tell them. Nobody moved. His voice sharpened. Tell them this man never lived here. The room became completely still. Cassian looked at the same faces that had denied him. Percival pointed at Mr. Hale. You first. The old butler's hands trembled. Mr. Hale. Hale looked at Percival, then at Cassian. Fear passed across his face. Cassian expected silence. Instead, Hale stepped forward. Slowly, he reached the center of the room and bowed, deeply. Welcome home, Your Grace. Cassian stopped breathing. Anna began crying. Percival stared. Hale. The butler straightened. I knew him the moment he entered this house. Percival's face darkened. Daniel Webb stepped forward next. So did I. Then Anna. And I. Another maid left the wall. Then a footman. Then the old stableman. One by one, the house began remembering. Not through documents. Through people. Percival looked around in disbelief, as the lie he had built for 5 years collapsed in less than 5 minutes. Mr. Hale's voice broke. We were told our pensions would disappear. Anna whispered. My mother's cottage belongs to Greymere. Daniel added. Mr. Varick said my brother would lose his farm. Cassian listened. Some explanations angered him. Others hurt. But he understood something now that he had not understood on the night they denied him. Fear could make honest people perform terrible acts. It did not make those acts harmless. But neither did it make every frightened person wicked. Sir Edric removed his magistrate's chain. He placed it on the table. I will resign before sunset. Cassian looked at him. You think resignation settles this? No. Sir Edric met his eyes. It begins the consequence. Cassian gave a small nod. That was all. No forgiveness. Not yet. Percival attempted to leave. 2 county officers blocked the door. Sir Edric had summoned them before Cassian arrived. Perhaps guilt had finally overcome self-preservation. Perhaps he simply understood the evidence. Either way, Percival stopped. Cassian looked at his cousin. You will answer for the forged records, the payments, the threats, and whatever money disappeared during these 5 years. Percival's mouth twisted. And you imagine they will love you for this? Cassian glanced around Greymere. No. Then back at him. I am beginning to understand that being loved is a poor method of government. The investigation lasted months. Percival was charged with fraud, coercion, falsification of estate records, and unlawful transfer of property. Sir Edric testified publicly. He resigned his office and spent the next year assisting the inquiry without payment. Cassian did not forgive him immediately. But when Sir Edric surrendered letters that implicated men far more powerful than himself, Cassian began to believe that remorse could sometimes be measured in what a person was willing to lose. The servants faced different consequences. Those who had accepted large payments willingly and helped threaten others were dismissed. Those who had lied under genuine pressure were permitted to remain, but not as though nothing had happened. Cassian met each one personally. "You lied to me," he told Mr. Hale. "Yes, Your Grace. I understand why." Hale lowered his head. "That does not make it right." "No." Cassian paused. "Then we begin from there." Mr. Hale wept after leaving the room. Greymere changed. Cassian ordered copies of all major estate records stored in Bellwether, the parish archive, and an independent solicitor's office. Tenant agreements were rewritten in plain language. Pension promises could no longer be revoked by one man's private order. And no single steward would ever again control the estate's legal memory. Someone joked that Cassian was making it impossible for Greymere to forget itself. He answered, "That is precisely the idea." Rosamond remained through most of the reforms. Then, one spring morning, Cassian found her packing books into a crate in the Greymere library. His mood worsened immediately. "What are you doing?" "Returning home." "You are home." Rosamond looked at him. Cassian realized what he had said. He tried again. "I mean, your work here is unfinished." "No, it is not. There are still records. There will always be records. Contracts. You employ 3 solicitors. They are tedious. So are you." Cassian folded his arms. "You cannot leave merely because my estate has become functional. That is generally when sensible people leave." He stared at her. Rosamond almost smiled. Then Cassian saw the packed satchel. She really intended to go. Something inside him dropped. "You stayed when nobody believed me." Her expression softened. "You needed evidence. I needed more than that." She became still. Cassian stepped closer. "When I arrived, everyone asked me to prove what I owned. My house, my title, my name." Rosamond said nothing. "You asked what I remembered. That was evidence too." "No." His voice softened. "That was the first time someone treated my life as something more than a legal claim." Rosamond's eyes lowered. Cassian continued. "When Greymere told me I had never belonged here, you gave me somewhere to stand until I could prove otherwise." She looked up. "I do not want you here because Greymere requires a duchess." Her breath caught. "I want you here because I have finally learned the difference between possessing a house and having a home." For once, Rosamond Blythe had no clever answer. Cassian reached into his coat. She immediately said, "If that is a ring, your timing is terrible." "It is. You could have done this before I packed 6 boxes." I panicked. "You are a duke. I have recently learned the title is less useful than advertised." She laughed. Cassian held out the ring. "Rosamond." "Yes?" "Would you please stop making this difficult? That is not a proposal. Marry me." She looked at him for a long moment, then at the clock. "You are 11 minutes late." Cassian groaned. "Not the bellwether clock again. It matters. I crossed half a continent to get home, and still Bellwether defeated you." "Rosamond." She smiled. "Yes." Cassian stared. "Yes?" "Yes." He kissed her before she could qualify the answer. They married in Bellwether that autumn. Naturally, the church was full long before the ceremony. Naturally, Cassian arrived early. And naturally, Rosamond did not appear. He stood at the chapel steps, looking toward the town clock. 10 minutes. Then 11. Cassian muttered, "If she has planned this, I will annul the marriage before it begins." Mr. Hale beside him whispered, "You would not." "No, I did not think so." Then the bellwether clock finally struck the hour. A carriage appeared around the corner. Rosamond stepped down. Cassian stared. She approached with perfect calm. "You are late." "No." She pointed toward the clock. "For once, Bellwether and the Duke of Greymere agree on the time." Cassian looked at the clock, then at her, then laughed so loudly half the guests inside turned around. And when they entered the chapel together, Mr. Hale stood near the door. This time, when Cassian passed him, the old butler bowed without fear. Years later, visitors to Greymere often noticed something unusual. Cassian's restored portrait did not hang in the grandest position. It hung beside a smaller framed collection of ordinary objects. A tailor's measurement page, a bookseller's unpaid account, a physician's note, a stable receipt, and an old broken brass compass. When guests asked why a duke displayed such unimpressive things, Cassian always gave the same answer. "Because when powerful men erased my name from the important records, ordinary people proved I had existed." Greymere had once taught him that a title could be stolen. Bellwether taught him something more important. A life was not preserved by the grandeur of the house that claimed it. It survived in the people who remembered who you were, and had the courage, when the moment finally came, to say your name aloud.